Many moons ago. All right, Mike. Pull it together. I mean, it's already going. We've been going for almost 10 minutes.
Holy shit. All right, I'm here.
Okay.
Hello. Let's go. Hello, everyone. What's going on?
Hey, guys.
Hello. How we doing?
Welcome to Podcast in the Sky with Diamonds, episode 2.
Holy shit, we made it.
We made it.
Living the highway.
Barely.
I mean, we'll see what happens after this
Thanks
one.
for turning over to side B on the cassette.
We're happy to have you here on side B, where all the stuff we want to be on here that the labels didn't want on here gets put.
Exactly.
It's as the kids say,
Lit.
Or my... Yeah.
Okay. All right. So today,
hello, children.
So today we're going to dive a little bit into rock and roll history and tie it into what our favorite rock stars are doing today / what bands we think are probably the most important in terms of the transformation of rock as it was in the 60s.
We're going to talk about some of the greatest producers
That's true.
to ever walk the earth.
Producers are so
Shout
important.
out Rick Rubin.
Shout out Rick Rubin.
Dude, I was just going through Rick Rubin's discography, and we'll get into it in a little bit. Holy fucking shit.
Yeah, guys.
He's done a lot of shit.
Rick Rubin has done some shit.
I had to tweet at him yesterday because
Rick Rubin, sponsor us.
I feel like every time I watch a Rick Rubin interview, I'm blown away every single time. He's such like an empathetic, intelligent, and talented individual. Like his...
Is he the one with crazy hair? I feel like he has like, last time I remember seeing him, like, he had like crazy hair.
He has like this one giant bald spot on the top of his head, but like right at the crown, he still keeps it long. So like...
Excuse me while I Google image Rick Rubin.
He's a scary looking motherfucker. Scary looking dude.
And there goes our sponsorship with him.
I would not... Rick Rubin, I still love you, but I would not want to meet Rick Rubin in a dark alley.
Have you seen him today?
He'll start playing Rain in Blood by Slayer and...
He's all salt and pepper
Shot me
now.
up. Yeah.
He's good though.
He's dope. He's probably the greatest producer that we've seen, at least. I mean, the albums I listen to all the time.
No, I think in
wheelhouse.
terms of producers, Rick Rubin is definitely in the top 3.
Dude,
okay, now I see.
Yeah, now
I was thinking of someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's Rick Rubin. So yeah, should we just...
So everyone that's listening to the podcast, if you don't know who Rick Rubin is, just Google him, and then you'll understand what I'm talking about.
And also tweet at him.
He's more than likely been producing an album you've listened to at least more than once.
I'll list off.
For sure.
I took screenshots. I'll list them off.
We'll
later.
get into him. Rick Rubin is gonna have like a whole 15 minutes at the end of the
teaser.
episode dedicated to him. Okay, so why don't we just jump right in?
Go ahead.
Yes.
Okay.
You do it.
Brief recap from episode 1. Just to reiterate, when we talk about rock, we basically mean popular music, because that's what it was referred to in the 1960s. You know, what we call pop, they used to call rock and roll. It's not just one thing. It's more of a blanket term that kind of covers almost every music genre.
Yeah.
That we have today. It basically created a bunch of little love babies.
Lots of love.
Subgenres.
On subgenres.
It's-
Marvin Gaye starts playing.
I was hoping more for some Careless Whispers, but that's just me.
I love Careless Whispers.
Why don't we have both?
Especially from you, Andrew.
Guys,
That's for after the show.
I'm feeling some
Podcast in the Sky After Dark.
some real chemistry happening over there.
Bonus
Woo!
episode.
A little more than just chemistry. Maybe
That's
some
right.
human anatomy can be
Oh my god.
Anyway, to keep us back on track, if you know where to look and how to look, it's really easy to trace a line from rock and roll in the 60s to Bruno Mars today to
Of course.
the Arctic Monkeys.
Beyonce.
Beyonce. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Basically, rock and roll gave teenagers their first avenue for self-expression and self-exploration. So in essential, it was the first counterculture.
Those gosh darn teenagers.
I know, with their bubblegum pop.
And their cellular devices.
Oh, sock hops. How dare they?
So I don't remember if we talked about it last episode or not, but I remember I remember going off on a small tangent about how this was like the first time in America teenagers as we think of them today were like actually a thing.
Yeah, teenagers were actually teenagers.
Was that a thing we did last episode? Or?
Yeah, it was. I mean,
Or was it?
Who knows?
Who knows? You guys tell us. Tweet at us and tell us if we talk. We don't listen to the episodes.
No.
We're just gonna go with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It was a conversation at one point.
Yeah, basically, the TLDR, in case we didn't do it,
Favorite phrase
is first time in really American history that teenagers existed, because like the middle class was now like a thing. So
Yeah.
you like had disposable income, and teenagers could like buy cars with radios in them. Then they listened to rock and roll on the radio and all that fun
They
stuff.
got all sexed up.
Yep, they got all sexed up listening to that devil music.
Exactly.
Basically, the too long didn't read of America in the 50s, minus like the racism and all the bad stuff.
Yeah. But we won't get into that right now.
No.
Parents thought it was bad then.
That's
Yes.
That's a different podcast.
So, basically, to give you guys a good quote, Little Richard once said, "The blues had an illegitimate baby, and we named it rock and roll."
Amen.
Which was coined actually by disc jockey Alan Freed. He was the first person to coin the term rock and roll, which was black slang for
Doing the deed.
having the sex.
Having the sexual relations.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman. Shut up, Bill Clinton. Sponsor us. And Monica Lewinsky, if you're listening.
Yeah, I mean, we would love to have the both of you.
Let's have him on the podcast.
Come on the show.
Screw music.
Yeah.
Let's just...
No, Bill Clinton can come on the show and play his saxophone.
Oh, that's right.
Oh,
That's-
shit.
God.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. Okay.
Bill slips those shades on. Game over, baby.
He can play Careless Whispers like we just talked about.
Yeah,
All
it's
full
all
circle.
tying in. Look at us go. Doing a podcast.
So between 1949 and 1954, the black and white musical traditions kind of cross-educated each other. I mean, if you want to go with the actual definition of rock and roll, they had the sex, and then created the music that we know and love today. Not one person started rock and roll. It was literally a movement. Like, it was a cultural revolution. It was a black and white alloy made up of artists like Muddy Waters, Ray Charles, Chuck Berry, Fats Domino, Elvis Presley.
There you go.
Fucking hell.
Elvis Presley. I love but a hound dog. No.
Jerry Lee Lewis, Johnny Cash, Sam Cooke, B.B. King, and a lot of Motown, which eventually led to the birth of classic rock and roll bands that we think of today as being the front runners for the rock and roll sensation.
Motown was a little bit of its own thing, but
It had a lot of influence, though.
Oh yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just me like thinking.
I'm gonna have
like,
to.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to side with Andrew on this one.
Maybe that's my own.
Shocker. Write it down. I'm
thoughts,
siding with him.
on stuff where I'm pretty sure Motown came like a little after this, or like it could have very well been starting around this time, but it got bigger in the 60s or
yeah.
so. I don't know.
They were all happening at the same time, just in very different parts of the country.
Oh yeah, which is how history works in general.
Yes.
So like short history lesson for everyone out there is a history nerd like me. Anyway, basically
the
history
tension
never
with the
happens
knife.
at one specific point. There's always a build up and it sort of fades in.
Right.
So everyone knows. So when you think of like when we talk about music, we'll talk about like maybe the 50s or something. Then we start talking about the 60s. It's not like in 1959 suddenly 50s style music just like stopped on New Year's Eve like a minute before midnight, and then suddenly the 60s everyone was listening to hippie music. It was like a fade in. There was still 50s-esque music being made into the 60s, and
Yeah,
the beginnings of 60s music in the 50s, and so on and so on and so on.
yeah. The hippie music that we know and love today didn't actually start happening until the mid to late 60s. So that 50s style carried well in.
All of the music I
to
listen to
64,
points that
65.
1990 is still happening, or the 90s in general.
I wish.
mean, my 90% of my Spotify is music made before the year 2000. So
Stop looking at me like that.
I wish we could have a videotape of the
I know.
stuff that goes down in this. Actually, no, that would be a.
All right, we'll start a GoFundMe to get a GoPro. We'll start the podcast in the sky. Podcast in the sky. GoFundMe for the GoPro. We'll get just like a GoPro and just mount it in here somewhere.
We can have one on each of our heads and just
Sure, that'll be the reach goal. If we reach enough monies, we'll get 3 GoPros and mount them to our heads while we're wearing these big old over-the-ear monitors.
Just let everyone know my Venmo account is open if you want to do that. So just,
Yeah,
just
if you
Venmo me
guys-
money.
you guys
Maybe I'll
ever-
do something for the podcast with it. Maybe I'll just.
not.
Yeah,
buy
if you
beer.
guys are just ever in possession of too much money, we will take it.
We would love it.
Sponsor us, whomever you are.
Jesus. Money me, money now. You ever seen that episode of Always Sunny? She gets up there and Charlie writes the speech and money me, money now. Give me money now.
Money me now.
Oh, brutal.
I mean, I was going to quote AC/DC and say money talks, but that works.
I mean,
too.
we could also do the Pink Floyd song Money too.
Yeah, that's about how like money is evil, which I mean it is, but
It
like
is.
you know, I'm down with that.
I'm already
evilness.
going to hell, so fuck it. I don't care.
I'll drink to that.
Amen. All right, back on track.
Yes,
With your water.
So,
yes, with my water.
So
Stay
why don't-
hydrated, kids.
why don't we talk about Elvis Presley? See,
There you go, Meg.
Said
You
it
can
out that
pronounce
time.
it. You're doing so
I
good.
know.
I'm
Proud
so
of you.
proud of you.
Guys, it's been a long day. Okay. Let's talk about him. He seems to be the big front runner of rock and roll music. So
He's certainly the poster boy of
Yeah.
early rock and roll.
that's a good word for
He's
it.
rock daddy.
Elvis was the poster boy for rock and roll. He was heavily influenced by black gospel music and the blues.
Yes.
Jesus Christ. He was a perfect candidate to quote unquote get black music out on the market onto mainstream radio. He was found by Sun Records owner Sam Phillips, who also recorded and produced a lot of the other greats that we're going to be talking about. Sun Records is said to be the cradle of rock and roll. And Elvis was surprisingly shy. He was really shy. He didn't like his voice. He had a hard time coming out of his shell. So Sam Phillips kind of had to.
Much like all of us here in the podcast, hearing ourselves recorded for the first time.
So
Ugh,
weird.
I don't know how you guys are listening still.
So
These people sound terrible.
I know. Who in their right mind would subscribe to such
Jesus.
an amazing podcast? Which you can find us at various podcast locations at Podcast in the Sky with Diamonds.
Shameless plug. Love
Shameless
it.
plug. One of
Okay.
many.
So, basically, Sam Phillips one day in the studio sat him down and was like, yo, this isn't fucking working. We have to try something else aside from all these Christian pop songs that you're trying to recreate. So he went back in the booth, and Elvis came out with That's All Right Mama, which today is probably still one of the most popular original rock and roll songs.
Insert clip of that song here.
That's all right, mama. That's all right with you.
Great cover.
Thank you.
There we go.
On point.
Thanks. I watched Walk the Line a
Yep.
lot, and
Yep.
that song is in there.
As it should be.
Elvis was really humble for being such a superstar that he was. He never took the crown of being the king of rock and roll. He would always deviate to talk more about his admiration for B.B. King, Ray Charles, and he influenced John Lennon, who you wouldn't have expected to be such a big Elvis fan.
I'm shocked by that. I remember you telling me that. And I was
Yeah.
like, really? How is that?
John was completely obsessed with Elvis. He's quoted as saying, before Elvis, there was nothing.
I love that.
And back after his uncle died, he had his aunt take him out to get him a guitar because he wanted to start playing that sort of music. And then he started dressing up like one of those teddy boys with the slick back hair and the tight jeans.
John Lennon did this?
And the leather jacket. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Pixar, it didn't happen.
Okay. I will pull something up for you. He actually had started a band called the Quarrymen.
Hey, I knew that.
Back when he was still in high school, which is where he met Paul McCartney at one of the shows they did for the churches, and they would basically go to these really formal, sort of sophisticated church events, and they would play covers of rock and roll music.
Wow. At churches?
I mean, that's what a lot of like British music was like in the 50s. It was literally just like covers of American music.
Yeah.
Basically, because they were like, wow, there's this newfangled rock and roll music across the pond. This is pretty cool. And like a lot of like the famous British guitarists of the British invasion will like state many times over how they like would like listen to like Muddy Waters and well, there's your evidence.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I know.
Oh my God.
He loved it.
Wow.
Yeah, guys, everybody just Google like young John Lennon and you'll come up with a bunch of pictures of his like
That was his rapper name, Young John Lennon.
young John Lennon.
Find them on SoundCloud at
YUNG, Young John.
Yeah, he always had the cigarettes and the leather jackets, and that's how they originally dressed when they were playing at the Cavern and in Hamburg. They all looked like that. It wasn't until their manager Brian Epstein came along and was like, "See this? This is not gonna work. Like, you're not gonna get a record label looking like this." So he was the one.
So
who
they dressed
them
up with like bowl cuts and like.
Yep. And
Jesus.
even then, people shit
Who
on
thought
them.
that was a good idea?
Even then, people were like, "Look at those fucking haircuts." And then, like later in like the late '60s, early '70s, is when everyone else started getting those haircuts. And then they shit on everybody else.
Like their last concert that they played on that roof deck, and the videos all over Facebook, viral all the time, and they're playing on the roof.
The Let It Be album.
It's some Facebook video that I don't know. I'm not a fan of the Beatles, but it's a video that's around as one of their last shows that they played together, and they did a set on a roof in London or whatever.
I'm pretty sure it was on top of Apple.
That was their best look.
Yeah.
Yeah. They looked like rock stars then.
Yeah.
You know?
After they started taking psychedelics and doing drugs is when they started changing their look. And that's also coincidentally when they stopped touring. So basically after Rubber Soul and Revolver, they started going and growing out their hair and doing the beards and wearing the hippie clothes. And I felt like it suited them much better than how they originally looked.
Yeah.
So that's a little rock and roll history right there. So it's also important to note that a lot of the other older rock and roll stars influenced a lot of the bigger stars back from like the 60s and also today. Like Sam Cooke influenced John Legend and Michael Jackson. Muddy Waters influenced Eric Clapton. B.B. King, who was the king of the blues, influenced the Stones, Jimi Hendrix, ZZ Top, U2, and Santana. And who doesn't like Santana?
And Stevie Ray Vaughan, because there's literally, I'm pretty sure, a clip of them playing together at somewhere on the internets, which, look it up somewhere. B.B. King, Stevie Ray Vaughan. If you're into that bluesy goodness, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Stevie Ray Vaughan, I love just like listening to him play guitar.
Yeah.
Like, just unreal. John Mayer posted an Instagram about Stevie Ray Vaughan today.
Did he?
It was beautiful. Because Stevie Ray Vaughan is like John Mayer's biggest musical influence.
Very influenced by his more modern guitar work.
Who was influenced by B.B. King? See, we're already drawing that line.
So you can see where it comes from. Where even if it's not someone that is one of these original rockers, like from the quote-unquote birth of rock and roll, it's like someone who is influenced by someone who may have been influenced by someone who can then be a modern artist today, sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Just to prove to you guys that Elvis really wasn't the first person to get a #1 rock and roll hit, I pulled up some Billboard charts. The #2 record on Billboard charts of 1950 was Fats Domino's "The Fat Man." In 53, it was the original version of Hound Dog by Big Mama Thornton. And it wasn't until 56 that Presley had a fourth best-selling single, which was Heartbreak Hotel. And then the #11 song that year was his cover of Hound Dog. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Dope.
Let's not forget. Like, even some of Elvis's most famous songs were covers.
The music scene is very cannibalistic like that, where it's like...
That's a good way of putting it.
It's like an artist will cover another artist's song if it doesn't do too hot. I mean, like, a lot of, like, super famous songs are covers. Like, what's the one I was thinking of? Well, the only one I'm thinking of right now at the top of my head for some reason, even though this would be jumping like 30 years ahead from where we are on this timeline, it'd be Come On Feel the Noise by Quiet Riot. That's a cover, and that's like Quiet Riot's like, biggest song. Yeah, it's originally by some like 70s British glam band that didn't really do much called Slade.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god.
And it's
crazy,
like a little
right?
less like, extreme than Quiet Riot's.
Holy
that's
shit.
like Quiet Riot's biggest song, and it's a cover. And there's another one that I'm trying to think of, but I can't.
Well, switching genres, Wagon Wheel by Darius Rucker, a.k.a. Hootie, from Hootie and the Blowfish.
Mm-hmm.
Old Crow Medicine Show.
Yep.
Which even then, they kind of got that song from Bob Dylan anyway.
Yep.
It was like the original singer of Old Crow. Like, if I remember the story right, he got it from like a bootleg, like, demo tape he got from someone at a Dylan show. And then he was like a street busker and started like writing his own lyrics to just like, because Dylan just had like the chorus, rock me mama like a wagon wheel.
Mm-hmm.
It was unfinished, and he put the...
Yeah, so he wrote like the rest of the song, and then he realized it was getting big, and he was like, oh shit, I should probably do something about this. So he got in contact with Bob Dylan. He was like, hey, gave him the whole spiel, and then Bob Dylan was like, all right, cool. I mean, whatever.
Yeah, Bob Dylan's super chill.
Yeah, and from what I
about
understand,
that kind of
him and Old Crow will somewhat regularly collab on like songwriting and stuff, which like if you ever listen to Old Crow Medicine Show, just if anything how the guy sings, it's kind of hard not to hear the Bob Dylan influence. But
wicked.
Yeah, Bob Dylan influenced and still influences so many people. Just like Jimi Hendrix's most popular song, All Along the Watchtower.
Covered so many times.
Yeah. That's Bob Dylan's original song. Who, I mean, he liked Jimmy's cover better. I mean, who doesn't? It's Jimi Hendrix.
It's great.
But yeah, so that's something to keep in mind when you're listening to some of your most popular songs. Was it a cover?
If anything, just look it up. And then if it's not a cover, you might find someone else who does a pretty dope cover of it. Then you can share it with your friends.
We need to do like a covers episode because
I have so many.
We will do a covers episode. We'll make a fun title for it that isn't riffing on the NSP cover album Under the Covers.
And we'll have a whole playlist for you guys too, which will be important. So some of the most iconic and classic rock songs that are going to be on the playlist that will be put out with this episode are Jerry Lee Lewis's Great Balls of Fire, Ain't That a Shame, which is still one of my favorite jams. I put that on and I'm like, yes, I love feeling that blues. Love it. Roll Over Beethoven, which was also covered by the Beatles when they started out. Please Mr. Postman, which is also another song that gets covered a lot. And all these songs influence the sounds of the Beatles and the Beach Boys, the Animals, Eric Clapton, Led Zeppelin, and a lot of other of those British blues type bands.
Not gonna lie to you, I've not heard any of those songs.
Oh, that's okay. That's why I
I'm
made
so
a playlist.
sorry. I'm so sorry.
I made a playlist.
I'm terrible.
It's okay.
We're
I can't
all
wait to
learning
listen
here
though.
Together.
You will probably recognize them once you hear them.
This show is more about me learning stuff about music.
We love teaching you.
Basically,
I
it's
love
us
seeing your
teaching
reaction.
Mike
I
about
love being
random
teached.
stuff.
Taught.
I love being teached.
Okay.
It's teached.
All right. I'm trying not to scream. But
It's
fine.
teached.
Who is teach to their own.
Please scream at me right now. Ah, damn it.
Nope.
All right.
I'm mad my pun went under the radar. Rip.
It went under the radar right now, but people are going to love it when they
Rip.
listen to this.
Yes.
R.I.P.I.P.
Okay. So it wasn't until the influence of drugs and psychedelics that rock and roll kind of did its whole transformation from going to teeny bopper bubblegum pop to the stereotypical hippie aesthetic. Psychedelic rock, which had artists like Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, further progressed rock into the counterculture that stemmed well into the late 60s and early 70s and even into the 80s in some instances. So rock became synonymous with freedom of expression and experimentation, aka fight the man. Fuck him.
Basically.
Like, that's basically all that it was. So let's get into some producers. I love those
man.
producers.
Here we go.
I
Here we
know.
go.
The
We're
guys
gonna
behind the scenes.
I know, which
made it all
are
possible.
just as important. George Martin was pretty much the fifth Beatle because he did a lot of the arrangements for a lot of their songs that had orchestras and strings and whatever because he was classically trained.
Mm-hmm.
So, Paul or John would come up to him with a song and he'd be like, the only thing that can make this better, I can hear you drinking.
I'm so sorry for everyone that had some ASMR of me.
He forgets he's on a
Lugging water.
podcast.
First it was the jelly beans.
Yeah.
Now
You're going to
it's
hear
the
some
water
sort
bottle.
of bodily function out of Andrew on every single episode of Podcast in the Sky.
Yeah, that is actually the point of this podcast. It's actually to get my ASMR career kickstarted.
Love it.
I'm not actually doing that. Unless people want me to do that, then I mean, sure.
I do.
Well, all right.
All right. Okay.
Anyways, guys, I'm in the room.
Sorry. You guys had something earlier.
We did.
It's
That'll
just going to
also
be
be
like
the
Fleetwood
podcast.
Mac. Jesus Christ.
Oh, God.
We're gonna start dating, and then we're all gonna break up the band, and then we're gonna have a reunion tour after
Break
we
up again.
break
They're
up
sluts.
again.
They sleep with the band. No? School of Rock reference? Fuck you
Yeah,
guys.
no,
Come
I
on.
no, I get it now. Now
Come
that you said it,
on.
I remembered it. That was just like could have been from like a lot of random things. I'm like, okay. Then when you said School of Rock, it's like I know exactly what you're talking
Look at
about.
Mike's face. He does not believe that bullshit.
No,
that
because
just came out of
I
your
do
mouth.
not believe that
No,
bullshit because
because Miranda Cosgrove said it. Fucking iCarly.
Miranda,
chick.
what's her name? What's her name?
Cosgrove. I don't remember. Her
Cos-
Miranda
Cosgrove.
Cosgrove.
Thank you. Sorry,
Megan.
Fuck you.
All right, so,
I am so disappointed right now. School of Rock is the greatest movie of all time.
I agree. Sorry if I just didn't remember that one quote for a movie
I'm
that
just
is
kidding.
full of quotes.
It's fine.
All
I
right,
still
Andrew,
love
your
you.
homework is to rewatch School of Rock.
I mean, don't need to tell me twice.
Okay.
It's the greatest movie.
All right, back to producers.
Yes.
Yes.
Anyways,
Gentlemen.
yes.
All right. I felt like George Martin and Phil Spector were probably the two most influential ones of that early rock period.
You told me you had some
talk
good
about.
Phil Spector stories. I want to hear about a little bit about that.
Phil Spector is a very interesting dude.
Just lay it on me. I want to.
So like he was
immerse
known,
myself.
at least as far as from what I recall, like he was like naturally like a pale dude.
Yeah, he was like this tiny, frail looking motherfucker.
Like he would dress like in like all black and look just genuinely creepy.
There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with tiny, frail,
no.
pale-looking motherfuckers.
no,
like
but you
not-
wouldn't looking at him, you wouldn't expect.
Him to be this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he's pale, he's tiny, he would dress kind of creepy. His last name is Spector, and so
He was definitely supernatural with all
Didn't
that
he,
fucking
like, get
skills.
burned at some point, like scarred the F out of his face.
I don't remember.
I'm gonna look at my phone.
They didn't talk about it. in-
This episode is sponsored by Wikipedia, where we get random facts on the internet. Wikipedia
so
sponsor
much
us.
information.
Yeah, please Wikipedia sponsor us. Just put our name in the little thing whenever you go on there, and it's like, can you give us 50 cents? It's like, actually, can you just give Podcast in the Sky Diamonds 50 cents?
Yeah.
That'd be great.
So I'm pretty sure the name of Phil's first band was the Teddy Bears. I think,
Okay.
if my memory serves me correctly.
Okay.
But he came up with what is known today as the Wall of Sound,
Which is very cool.
which is also called the Spectre sound.
Okay.
It's it's a musical production formula developed and produced by him. The intention was to exploit the possibilities of studio recording and creating an unusually dense orchestral aesthetic that came across well through radios and jukeboxes of the era. Spector explained in 1964, I have a whole quote, looking for a sound so strong that if the material was not the greatest, the sound would carry the record. It was just a case of augmenting. I can't even say that word today. What the hell is wrong with me?
I don't know, dude.
It all fitted together like a jigsaw. So he would take all these weird random things that you wouldn't expect to sound good together, and he made them sound good together.
I love it.
Yes. To answer your first question, the Teddy Bears was his thing.
Okay,
As a band
good.
he co-starred. I'm trying to look up the near fatal accident,
Oh my
Which
god,
is
I swear
what-
to God, they all almost
which
died.
is what
More
Wikipedia
than once.
puts the section as. It's like, comeback and near fatal accident.
Nice.
Does it really?
I
Yeah.
love Wikipedia.
So it says
Wikipedia is so savage.
1969 to 77, comeback and near fatal accident. I need to look better for like the fatal accident part because I was like skimming it and like
Okay, well,
there's a lot of stuff about how like Let It Be was made, which is great, but we'll say that for another episode. Probably.
most definitely.
Don't get Meg going here.
I've
Please.
already went off on two tangents already, and we haven't even started talking about George Martin yet.
You talk about the Beatles more than you talk about yourself.
Yes.
It's true.
It's crazy.
Yes.
I've never experienced anything like it.
Oh, here it is. So Spector was involved. Spector became increasingly reclusive.
Of course, I mean, he already kind of was.
Yes.
He
So according to or revealed by biographer Dave Thompson, citation needed. So take this with a grain of salt.
right.
Was that in '74 he was seriously injured when he was thrown through the windshield of his car in a crash in Hollywood. And according to a contemporary report published in New Music Express, citation also needed. Spector was almost killed, and it was only because of an attending police officer detected a faint pulse that Spector was not declared dead at the scene.
Jesus Christ.
And then so he suffered serious head injuries that required several hours of surgery with over 300 stitches to his face and more than 400 to the back of his head. So, in the mid-70s, this was like post-comeback, he, got his face messed the F up. No offense to the family and or friends or Phil Spector himself, but you know what I mean. So he was he kind of had this creepy aura to him. He had his technique, the wall of sound.
Sounds like a fringe guy,
He was, in the sense he didn't do things in a traditional way. He was one of the first producers to do a lot of stuff post,
Yes.
if you will, whereas that's a very common thing today. It's like you can go into the studio, you play a song, the producer chops it up and makes it a new song, whereas he was one of the first people to really experiment with post production by adding stuff, making sounds that were quiet in the studio louder, and so on and so on.
Yeah. So he, just to name a few songs that are popular that he did the Be My Baby, You've Lost That Love and Feelin', River Deep Mountain High. He was kind of like Rick Rubin. He worked across the board. You know, he could kind of work with anybody, do anything. He just wanted to experiment and get his sound out there. And people loved it. They ate that shit up. People still do. Everyone still talks about Phil Spector.
I love it.
He was really good.
I want to immerse myself in Phil.
I'm telling you,
In the
watch the
Phil.
first episode. It's either the first or second episode of Soundbreaking. And for everybody listening, also watch Soundbreaking.
One of these days,
it's on
me and
Hulu.
Mike will actually do the homework Meg gives us, like, before the show.
Meg literally sends us a group text like, "Hey boys, like, love you so much. Like,
Here's your homework for the week.
This is what you got to do." And Andrew and I are like, "Yeah, sure, we love and support you." And then we fucking ignore her.
Yep.
And then it's like the day of recording.
And
And,
we're
like,
like,
I
"Yo,
literally
what we
texted Meg today as I had a couple hours. I'm like, "Oh, Meg, do we need to watch these episodes of this thing today?
And
or
I
is
said-
that for next episode?"
And I said yes, and he still didn't watch them.
I got busy
Meg,
doing other stuff. I
you know,
had to
the
do
thing
my
is, we
laundry,
love you a
clean the
lot,
room.
But we're men, and
I
we're just
know.
not going to
I
listen.
know. I have
And this is,
so much patience.
you do.
It's
You're very
okay.
loving and very patient and kind and all of the...
I'll just keep at you. I swear to God, though,
I'm going to watch it.
if
I'm gonna
you guys
watch it.
don't, we're gonna have a movie night, and we're gonna sit the fuck
See-
down in our pajamas, and I'm gonna make us dinner, and we're gonna watch.
I feel like
Soundbreaking.
that would be a good thing to do, is like do the homework together. You know, it forces us to do the homework.
All right. Well, I have plenty of room.
Cool.
So we can do that. All
Andrew's
right.
like, "Yeah, fuck, I'm going to bail on that too."
Well, it's to be fair, my dog was like attacking his face today.
Oh, yikes.
Literally.
Like,
Look
my-
at Meg's Snap story. He was already body slamming my face when I laid down.
My dog does it to everybody. Like if you lay down and he can get at your face, he'll rub his entire body everywhere.
Dude,
like
it's
he
true.
loves it.
So you
I'm
know,
not friends with either of you on Snapchat. That's going
Oh,
to change
fuck.
right
Anyway-
quick.
Anywho, so while we're adding each other on Snap, for all the listeners out there, if you want, podcast in the sky pajama party homework sesh to happen, tweet
At
Facebook
us.
at us on your various socials, and then if it gets enough traction, we'll like post fun pictures and stuff in our PJs,
Our
I guess.
jammies.
Oh my God, we'll look so cute.
I'm gonna look like a fucking scrub, but
Podcast in Meg's living room with jammies.
Yes.
yeah, that's the name of the after hour show.
I love it. Okay.
Drugs and
let's-
alcohol included.
So much. We'll just be like taking super drunk selfies, like, "Hey, everybody."
Just like that. It's going to
See, I
sound
mean,
just
I feel-
like that.
For me, it's like if I'm thinking I'm gonna sit down and do some like legitimate watching, it's like a nice cup of tea.
I made you some tea today.
I know, and it was delicious. That's why I want like
What a
some more.
Nancy. Oh my
His
God.
throat hurt, and I had green tea and honey.
Oh, I'd be
So
pounding beers.
okay,
Well,
Beers,
I had,
beers,
I had to
beers.
drive here, so
right.
maybe I'll have a shower. before
Drink
I go.
responsibly, children.
All right.
That is the PSA for today.
At any fun craft breweries out there, if you also want to sponsor us, we will not say no. Give us like a fun sampler. We can have you on the show. We can talk about beer and music. It'll be great.
Music
and beer go hand
Hand in
in
hand.
hand.
It does.
Like I
We
feel
can-
like
we'll work together. We'll curate a fun drinking playlist you can play on Friday night in your brewery.
a power hour
Ooh.
of sorts.
Yeah.
Andrew Terbezi, that's a great fucking idea.
So, at any fun craft brewers out there,
We're gonna put
Ooh,
"Don't
and-
Fear the Reaper" on there. Get all that cowbell.
we'll just have an hour of cowbell ass shit.
I love
Whatever
it.
the F you guys want. Come at us. We'll drink beer. We'll think of some good tunes for drinking beer too.
All of the beers.
Yes.
All of the beers.
If you guys send me music on my Twitter and stuff, I will get super fucking baked, and then I'll lay in my bed and stare at my ceiling and listen to it for hours on end, and that's like my favorite thing to do.
It's true.
So I mean,
get
Andrew's
Snapchats
witnessed
of
it.
Meg doing it like every day.
When Andrew lived on campus, when we both lived on campus, he would like walk into my room, and I would just be like sitting there,
Yeah.
listening to music high as fuck, just like
Basically.
sitting, like nodding my head, like fuck yeah,
And then
this
just
shit's tight.
and then before we
God.
get and just to paint the picture before we get back on track, it was almost like clockwork. Meg would suggest getting Domino's. I would say sure, but I'm not too hungry. And then she would eat half of the pizza and then offer me half of a pizza, so I would know at least every other night I could get half of a pizza for free.
At least, yeah, every other night till once a week. It
I would
depend
at
on
least
how high
once
I
a
would get.
week I would get half a free Domino's pizza.
Yeah.
I had Domino's for the first time in like 4 years the other day. I was very underimpressed.
Domino's makes me
That
feel
was
like
Just like I
shit.
remember it.
Yeah.
I had a very bad experience in college with Domino's because that's the only thing they delivered after 2 a.m.
Yeah.
True.
at Framingham.
I
Like,
know.
only thing.
Unless you wanted to walk to like the grill or
Or
whatever.
Joy Luck Club in downtown
Oh
Framingham.
my God.
I don't even know if that business is still open.
Oh.
Someone
It
please
is,
find out.
because it's right by my apartment.
Oh my God, the stories we have about that place.
Yes.
That's
I've
an
gotten
after.
food poisoning.
That's an
from that
after
place.
hours one
That'll
too.
be on podcast in Meg's living room with Jammies. We'll talk about our personal life.
Yeah, we'll use like a shitty microphone, and you guys are just gonna have to deal with it. You're
It's actually going to
love
be a
it.
microphone, like a little like children's toy microphone fed into an old 8-track tape player, and we're only going to release it on limited runs of cassette tape. So for all the people out there who still have a 1992 Toyota Corolla, you can listen to it.
Guess what, friends? You're in. Okay, so back to producers. Let's talk a little bit about George Martin,
Yes.
who just died within the past few years. R.I.P. One of the most brilliant minds to bless the music industry. Honestly, he was the only person to take in the Beatles. They were shot down by every single record label they walked into.
I love stories like that.
Yeah.
When a band just gets shut down and then they just go.
Isn't that hilarious though? Everyone was like, "You're not good, fuck you," and they turned out to be the greatest rock sensation.
Well, a lot of that
Asterisk.
has to do with the producer too, because they.
Oh, asterisk you.
If you guys couldn't tell, there's a strong Beatles versus not Beatles dynamic between two of our co-hosts. And by that, I mean the two co-hosts that aren't me. But a lot of the reason that these bands get picked up by these random producers, they see something in them and they're like, yeah, I think I can make something out of this. Which, like, you know, I guess if you think of, like, you're in the shoes of a producer, like, yeah, sure, I'll throw these guys a couple bucks. And then if it goes somewhere great, I'll make more bucks. If not, oh, well, I'm out a couple bucks.
Which is kind of exactly what happened with the Beatles. You know, John didn't even play the guitar properly until they were, like, in the studio. He was playing with like 3 or 4 strings, and like George Harrison looked at him and he was basically like, "Bro, what the fuck are you doing?" And he was like, "I'm playing the guitar." And he was like, "No, you're not."
Oh yeah,
Because-
like when they went to Germany, like that's when like the story of like Paul McCartney's like famous like violin style bass is like back then those were like super cheap shitty ass basses.
And that's all they could afford.
Yep, he bought one. It was from like a department store because back then you could buy like guitars and shit at department stores like Sears and such. So like the German equivalent of Sears, he bought this Hofner bass, which is the kind of bass that he plays. And now it's like synonymous with the Beatles and with Paul McCartney. And now those Hofner basses go for stupid money because they like were barely made and people want to sound just like the Beatles.
Yep.
So
I mean, Paul McCartney's guitar skills are pretty good.
oh yeah, I not subtracting from that. I was just trying to paint the picture of them being like, you know, for best case scenario, ragtag group of musicians that went on to fucking take over the world.
That's exactly what they were. When they started out playing in Hamburg and at the Cavern Club, they were literally living in a broom closet. Like, they couldn't wash their clothes. They couldn't take proper showers. They barely ate anything. They were just playing shows every single night. Basically, George looked at them, and they didn't even know how a studio worked. They didn't know how to produce music. They barely knew how to play instruments. They were just really good songwriters. So George kind of took them under his wing and was like, "This is what we're going to do. But I'm going to work off of what you give me. And we'll go from there." And then they became one of the greatest innovators. So yeah, George had this background in sophisticated classical music, and he put that into rock and roll songs that people had never really heard before. He did it in Yesterday. He added the strings. He did it in Eleanor Rigby. He did it in Strawberry Fields Forever. Love
that song.
I know.
It's one of the only Beatles songs I love, people. It's great.
Little George Martin, Beatles history on Strawberry Fields Forever. So they didn't know, well, John didn't know if he wanted the band to be playing on Strawberry Fields Forever or the orchestra. They recorded it both ways. And John was like, "I don't know what I want," because they both sound good. And they tried putting them together, but the timing was off. So the song sounded like shit. So basically, George had the idea to slow down the orchestra to match the beat and the tempo of the band. And that's why it sounds kind of like distorted and psychedelic and has that.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that's how Strawberry Fields Forever was made. And it's one of the most iconic songs of all time. Everybody
Strawberry Fields Forever.
Yeah. And John also hated his voice.
Sorry, guys. That was terrible.
John hated his voice. So if you notice in a lot of his songs, George had to overlay his voice more than once to make John feel better. So that's why it has like that
wow
echoey kind of second dimension to it.
Dude, for as much as I hate the Beatles, you were like making a strong case for them.
I know. I've done my research.
Good for you.
My dad was so against me liking the Beatles because he thought John Lennon was a dirty communist for whatever fucking reason.
Shout out
to Meg's dad.
Shout out to Meg's dad.
Love you, Kev.
Kevin. Hi, Kevin.
Also the most aggressive Facebook commenter ever.
Yeah.
Kevin Muse. Kevin, I don't know you personally, but I would like to. He literally comments the craziest stuff on Meg's obscure posts on Facebook, and I absolutely live for it.
He's so sick
I'm
of my
the
shit.
Kevin Muse biggest fan.
My dad is
on Facebook.
So sick of my shit. It's fine.
I've met Kevin a couple of times. He's a pretty cool dude.
Yeah, we saw Spider-Man with him last summer.
Good times.
But yeah, he never wants to buy me any Beatles shit, so my mom will be like, "Hey, I got you this stuff," and she'll fucking like slide some documentaries and books across the table at me,
like it's like a candy bar or something. Like, hey, look,
yeah.
he just slides you Beatles shit.
Exactly. So also shout out to my mom for being such a bad influence in my unhealthy obsession with this band. I swear to God. So basically, both George and Phil Spector were really good at making these tiny moments and these tiny songs and kind of blowing it up into an audio experience.
As any good producer should.
Right. So they were like at the top of their game at all times.
Let's talk about Rick Rubin, because I've been waiting for this.
Do we want to get into Rick Rubin first?
I kind of do.
Okay, we can get into Rick Rubin.
I kind of do.
I'm always ready to talk about
circling
Rick Rubin.
back to what I was talking about earlier. So I was like, I'm going to look up this guy's discography. And I was literally screaming.
Blown away.
You can ask Meg and Andrew. I was literally screaming reading this.
Basically.
Yeah.
All right.
By basically,
Here's just a quick. I'm just going to read through the screenshots I took. All right. Slayer, Rain and Blood. Like that was the first one. I was like, holy shit.
Dope.
Like, I don't, I'm not really one of those guys that knows all of this stuff all the time. So when I look it up and I find it out, it's like, oh my God.
You can see it in your eyes.
Run DMC.
Yep.
He did 2 of them. He did the mixing on King of Rock, and then he did Raising Hell. Like, oh my God. The Beastie Boys,
Yep.
License to Ill. Oh my God.
Yep.
What an album. Oh my God.
The Beastie Boys were literally like, we fucking love Rick Rubin.
He did some more Slayer. He did Blood Sugar Sex Magic, the Chili Peppers. Unreal.
Californication.
He did Californication.
Classic albums.
What else we got here? He did a Mick Jagger solo album. He did Joan Jett and the Blackhearts.
Incredible.
Joan
Jett.
I'm just trying to give some quick ones. He did some Johnny Cash.
Ooh, we'll talk more about him and Johnny Cash.
He did AC/DC's Ball Breaker. He did Tom Petty's Wildflowers, which is like my 3rd favorite album of all time.
He worked with the Dixie Chicks.
He fucked with the Dixie Chicks.
Yep.
Rage Against the Machine.
Yep.
Macy Gray. Shout out to Macy Gray. Haven't heard her name since like 2005. Like, holy shit.
Rick Rubin should get his claws back into her.
Oh,
I'm just saying.
Oh my God. He did a Neil Diamond album. He did Justin Timberlake's Future Sex Love Sounds.
Yeah.
Oh, have you guys, that is the GOAT of Justin Timberlake albums.
Yes, it is.
The GOAT. Like, so good.
We love you,
cover
JT.
To cover.
But
I love JT.
Rick Rubin is literally all over the place. And when people are like, why don't you just stick to one genre? Like, why are you jumping all... And his response was, I just like good music.
He did fucking Lana Del Rey's Paradise.
Yeah.
Like, this dude is just jumping all over the map.
Does it all.
I mean...
Renaissance man.
Come on.
He is.
If Rick Rubin was like, I want to work with you... Like,
you work with Rick Rubin. He knows his shit.
Yes. And he started in his dorm in NYU.
He did the Avett Brothers. Oh my God. This is...
He's good, right? I know. It's okay. Take a breath.
So the Foo Fighters, Rick Rubin was in their documentary Back and Forth, which was when they were writing their Wasting Light album.
Mm-hmm.
Great album. And it was all about like his history with Dave Grohl and the band and stuff. And like the whole first part of the documentary is about Nirvana and Kurt Cobain dying. And Rick Rubin's like super involved in that. And that's like how I, like I said, I don't like get into in depth like this into music and like who's the producer. I don't give a shit. Like if it sounds good, it sounds good. Like I don't give a shit.
Oh, I love the producers.
But like Rick Rubin though, like all of that,
fucking
I'm gonna respect the shit out of you. Do all that,
Rubin.
Yeah, like I'll care now.
Yeah,
because I saw all that.
So
unreal.
For any of you who have or have not watched soundbreaking, they do this segment at the end of one of the first few episodes where they talk about how Rick Rubin basically breathed life back into Johnny Cash's career before he died. He did his last album, like his self-entitled album, Cash or whatever, which was backed by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. That was the band that was on the album. Yeah. Rick Rubin was like, hey, you want to come do this thing with Johnny Cash? And Tom Petty was like, fuck yeah. Like, come on. And before then, Johnny Cash was playing at like a dinner theater in Southern California. Like, that's how low he had gotten. Yeah. Like, he had been busting out album after album in the 80s and the 90s, and people just weren't biting. Like, country music wanted nothing to do with him anymore. So he was like, he resorted to playing at these dinner theaters.
Wow.
Yeah. And Rick Rubin was like, no, we're not going to do that. Like, you're far too important. Like, you're an incredible musician. Let me help you. So what he did was he took Johnny Cash and they went into Rick Rubin's living room and they would just have a tape going. And Rick Rubin would have him play songs from his childhood when he would be picking cotton in the cotton fields. So he essentially wanted to get him back to his roots, so he could find that like passion and fire in him again. And Rick Rubin was blown away by all the history that Johnny Cash was feeding into him. And that's when he brought in Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And then Rubin had him cover Soundgarden's Rusty Cage.
Which is a dope cover.
Right, which is a really heavy, song with Chris Cornell. I could see his face, but for whatever reason, the name wasn't coming.
Lost a great one.
Rip Chris Cornell. And Johnny Cash listened to it, and he looked at Tom, and he was like, people are going to be so mad about this, and I love it. So he covered it, and it's an amazing cover. And he also did Hurt on that album, too, which is now one of like the most iconic covers to date.
Unreal.
So God bless Rick Rubin for bringing Johnny Cash back to life. And he passed away in like the early 2000s or whatever. And it was amazing.
He's still a god down south, though. Like, still, he has his own museum, and like, I mean, he's still revered as like the greatest country musician of all time. And he's got his own wing of the Country Music Hall of Fame, and then he has another separate wing about his friendship with Bob Dylan.
Like,
guy is iconic. I
can't even believe that like people weren't going for him for a few decades. Like, it's Johnny Cash. Like,
yeah, but people didn't care. It's just one of those things. I'm sure like
care.
When music changes, that's what these bands go through. People grow out of them, and then they'll come back and do their farewell tour, sell tickets, and then they're good for like another 2 albums, and they do another farewell tour, and it's just a cycle. It's how music is, and it's shitty that music's like that.
Ugh, makes me so mad. So, whatever. So there's some Rick Rubin. There's a modern producer for you that brought a little gem of the past back to life. Bless up. We love you. So now that we're talking about Rick Rubin, let's talk about the transformation of rock and roll.
Yes.
Okay.
Into what it is today, how it transformed, who's leading the pack. Andrew, I can't.
It's just like habitual because this is in front of my face. I just want to like.
I thought you were just like really roaring to go.
I mean, I'm roaring to go too. I got my notes still.
All right, you want to take the lead?
Yeah.
Well, that's like you should sit facing forward and then talk out of the side of your mouth like I'm doing, and I'm still I feel like I'm having a conversation with Meg, and this thing's
just. I can see
the
both of you very well from how I am.
I'm just an angsty sitter, so like I like to move around a lot, and then when I know I need to be talking into a specific part of this one little like black cylinder in front of my face, I need to be like, oh, I need to move this so I can be heard.
We hear you.
We hear you.
As long as the listeners can hear us when you subscribe to us at Podcast in the Sky with Diamonds on your various social medias and podcast platforms.
Yes.
Shameless
plug. All right, Andrew, let's get us started. What happened to rock? Where is it?
All right.
What is it?
If you ask me, rock will always change. If you look at what people define as rock over various decades and such, there's always a different sound to it. So, if you compare like 60s rock to like 80s rock, you're going to be comparing like, stoner music and hair metal and glam rock, but also the beginnings of like metal. But then if you compare like 70s music and 90s music, you're comparing hard rock to like grunge and so on and so forth. So if you ask me, rock is like always around, even though, all the gray beards today on every guitar forum ever. So, shout out to the gear page. There's like at least a thread a day on there that will say like, oh my god, rock and roll is dead because of blah 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 blah. And it's like, sure, your idea of rock is dead, but
which brings us back to the media's idea of rock, which is what defined it for so many years.
So when you have this like set definition, if you will, of what people think rock is, and a lot of people latch on to what they think is rock because it was around for them in like their formative years.
Nice burp.
Thanks. I hope there's some good audio of me.
I heard it.
Great. So you guys heard me glugging water and burping up Chick-fil-A.
This is the Andrew. This should be the name of the episode. The Andrew bodily function episode. Like, Jesus, dude.
I love it.
Between the mic fiddling and the burping, the water guggling, this is just Andrew fucking up the audio episode.
It's okay. I can fix it in post.
Great.
Awesome. All right.
Comes back to the Phil Spector.
She'll put little cute noises in there, like Tweety Bird and
I hope so.
Weird shit.
But
I can't
anywho,
even whistle right now.
so like if you ask me, rock is never really dead. It just goes through changes and cycles. You know, might have a different coat of paint. It might be unrecognizable to some people who listen to rock like maybe even a couple years ago because it doesn't sound like what they want it to sound like or what they think rock sounds like. Because if you think about it, like, you know, if you grew up with like rock in the 70s and such, then like you're gonna think rock needs to sound like rock from the 70s. So if you hear some modern rock that might do things a little differently, it might use like sampling and like synthesizers and stuff, you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, this isn't rock and roll, and so on and so forth. So if you ask me, it never really went anywhere. It's just, you know,
it's changed.
It's
evolving
just different. It's evolving.
It's like one of the laws of science, you know? Energy can neither be created nor destroyed. Just transformed.
Exactly.
It's kind of what happened with rock, you know?
It's transformed, and even if you don't like what, you know, popular rock is today, what's beautiful about living in 2018 is we are like, despite what you think of maybe popular music in 2018, we are living in like a musical renaissance.
We are. It's awesome.
Yeah, because of like the internet and social media, you can find someone somewhere on the internet, whether it be SoundCloud or Bandcamp or what have you, making the kind of music you want to like find. It can be some obscure ass fusion of two non-cohesive genres, but someone in their basement decided, you know what, I want to put new metal, funk, and spoken word together and see what happens.
Honestly, you just have to go looking for it. You can't be afraid to dig for it. Like, when I get super high and listen to music, I'll go balls deep in a Spotify search. Mm-hmm. And I'll dig up so much shit that I never thought that I would be into or never thought that I'd listen to. Mm-hmm. And then I'm obsessed with it for like 3 weeks.
That's the thing that I love so much about Spotify is they do the, you know, Discover Weekly stuff.
Yo, my Discover Weekly this week, fucking on point.
Yeah, I love it. It's like the best way to start your week. It's like, okay, Spotify, fuck me up. Like, yeah. Like, let's go. Like, I want to learn some crazy shit. Like, that's how I found Ripe. Shout out to Ripe. They fucking rock.
I've been in.
They showed up on the Spotify Weekly or whatever the hell.
I've been emailing them.
Oh my god, they love them. They're the nicest dudes. I met them at Ocean Mist, and they're awesome.
I know.
They're like
because of Spotify. That's how I found them too.
Yeah,
they're just
such
to
incredible
earth.
Musicians.
Yeah,
but like that's how I found them, and it's awesome. Like I went up and I was like, yo, I found you guys on Spotify. Like this is I'm seeing you 2 weeks after finding you on Spotify. This is awesome.
Also, we're going to their show in October.
Yo, everyone should go to that show. It should be a Podcast in the Sky with Diamonds like meetup with everyone.
Northampton?
It's in Northampton at Pearl Street Nightclub.
Seen them there. It's awesome.
Yeah. Pearl Street Nightclub is
so good. You can't help but move when you're at a Ripe show. They pull some
great artists through Northampton.
Yeah. And
for sure.
I don't remember who their opener was when I saw them back in November or December, but like even their openers are incredible. Like you're moving the whole entire time. Like
might have been Los Elk. Los Elk opened a few shows for them.
It's possible. I don't remember who it was.
Los Elk opened for them at Paradise Rock Club.
I love Los Elk.
But
I love them.
Yeah, if the tickets are cheap, guys, we're gonna be there. So
we're going.
If you want to come and hang, dance,
Podcast in the Sky meetup,
have a few beers.
Oh, there will be beers had.
Yeah,
there will be beers had.
We're gonna have a really good time. We're just gonna be dancing, getting all sweaty,
getting groovy.
It's gonna be great. But going back to that kind of shows how like the music scene is wildly different today than what it was when the original the predecessors of rock or the old generation of rock was around. Because back then it's like, you didn't have your Spotify Discover Weekly or like a viral Facebook video or what have you to get your band popular. Mm-hmm. Whereas today it's like you can very much self-manage your band, which, that's where like the whole stereotype of bands with shitty managers comes from, is bands having shitty managers
Yeah.
in like the 70s and 80s and 60s and 90s and such, because they would like, steal their money, book them shitty gigs and so on and so forth, where it's like now you can, relatively speaking, self-manage and become self-discovered because of the internet and such. Yes, Meg, you are raising your hand.
In the same breath, managers are also very important. I'm going to plug in another Beatles fact. Okay? It's
Please.
important. So
I'll let you get it out.
after Brian Epstein died,
Knee jerk.
which I believe they found, I don't remember when they found out. I think is when they were meditating for the first time in India. It was after Sgt. Pepper's that Brian Epstein died. And after that, the band completely fell apart. Like, Paul tried to step into Brian's shoes. They created Apple Records.
Not to be confused with the
Steve
company.
Jobs.
Right. they
Music.
created Apple Records in London, and by Paul trying to step into those very oversized Brian Epstein shoes, the band started to resent him a little bit because it wasn't so much focused on the four of them anymore. It was kind of Paul trying to take the lead, keep him in the limelight. Because I love Paul, but he's been a pop star diva since the day he was born. He's so sweet. He's so polite. He's probably one of the most genuine human beings. But the rest of the guys weren't there for that. They were just there to make music.
Yeah.
So, yeah, managers are important because then bands fall apart.
It's a good third party.
Oh yeah,
it's
they
good.
certainly are important.
It keeps them level.
If anything, it just shows how like, easy it is to, in a sense, maybe not like the level of fame of an old rock star, but you can be a band that isn't featured on the radio or any top 40 charts or anything, but you can still sell out big venues.
I mean, Chance the Rapper,
Yeah,
right?
Chance the Rapper.
He's independent. He doesn't have a label.
He's
or
independent,
anything.
but I mean,
he's on like the radio and such. I think I don't really listen to pop radio.
He's doing a movie that's coming out at the end of the year.
No.
Yeah, it's
Sweet. I did not know that.
A movie. He plays a pizza guy, and there's a werewolf in town, and this pizza joint's going to take that werewolf out.
I know nothing
you
about
said
this, but I
Chance the
wanna
Rapper
see
movie,
it.
and I was into it. Oh, I'm on the opposite. You said Chance the Rapper movie, and I was like, okay, I would see that. Like, just basic.
Yeah,
and then you said pizza guy, and there's a werewolf involved, and immediately I am not watching that movie.
It sounds so silly, but I want to see it.
That sounds like a straight to Netflix special to me.
Yeah, I mean,
you never know.
It looked a little tacky on the commercial, but he's
But maybe
funny.
that's like the vibe they're going for. I don't know.
So I mean, just to do a modern plug into the independent.
Yeah, but it shows that you can be independent. You don't have to necessarily have a record label or have all this money invested into your band to throw out a record label to then throw out radio stations. You can make it big because someone posts a video of you guys tearing it up at a live show on Reddit or whatever. And then it gets
YouTube.
Or YouTube or whatever. Someone posts a video on
Even
YouTube that ends
Facebook
up
Live
on Reddit
and
or
shit,
Facebook Live or Twitter or whatever. It's like you can get discovered because one of your fans posts a video of you playing some shit on whatever social, and then that blows the hell up. And that wouldn't happen before. Granted, it's a much, in some senses, quicker 15 minutes of fame if it's not capitalized on right.
Right.
But at the same time, that's something you wouldn't have happen before. There wasn't anyone with a cell phone at one of Led Zeppelin's early shows before they got big posting on a Facebook saying, yo, these guys are really sweet. You guys should check them out.
Yeah.
Speaking of Spectre from earlier, I was just doing a quick Google search because I was going to mention that I think it's cool when bands start their own record label.
Yeah.
Right? So Kings of Leon started their own record label in 2009.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like Googling it because I wanted to make sure I got the facts right. And my boy Spectre has produced for Kings of Leon. So now I'm a big Spectre guy immediately just because he's
You would
done.
never know. That's why you have to look into the producer history, Michael.
I got to start. I got to get on the train. You
have to.
Sure,
I mean, the name
to.
Spectre, it's spooky. He's a spooky guy. He's got those mystical rock powers.
It is almost fall, so it's almost time to get spoopy.
Spoopy. Let's get spoopy,
I was
gentlemen.
just trying to find the name of the
Let's get spoopy,
friggin'
boys.
label, but
But yeah, that pretty much sums up my rant of where rock is. It's like there's certainly popular bands out there still making hella good rock and rolls. You have guys like the Foo Fighters and Greta Van Fleet and the Sheepdogs and so on and so on. The
Black
Strokes,
Keys.
the Black Keys,
Mhm.
Jack White, whatever the side project Jack White's doing. 'cause he's
Arctic
really into those.
Monkeys.
I love
Yeah.
Jack White.
Cage
Arctic
the
Monkeys,
Elephant.
Cage the Elephant. All those guys.
We could keep going on.
Yeah,
Honestly.
there are certainly great rock bands out there.
Beck is still really important.
Oh yeah, It's like they're
Beck is still super important. You kidding me? He's in his own renaissance on his own.
Remember how pissed they were when he won Album of the Year a few years ago over Beyonce or whatever? It's like, come on, just like, I get it. Beyonce's a queen. She had a fantastic album, but like, it's Beck, man.
Well, that's because Kanye West is like mentally unhinged.
Ugh.
You know what?
Which, like, you know,
I'm gonna come out and say it. I'm also a Beyonce hater.
Are you?
I'm gonna piss off a lot of my friends, and I am so sorry that I've never admitted this to any of you. But I am not a Beyonce guy.
For me, it's like I understand why.
I think there's
so
way too much hype with her. Way too much.
I understand why she's very likable. Her music is very approachable.
She's beautiful.
Yeah, it's like, you know,
she has a great voice.
Yeah, she's a good voice, and she does all the fun dancing and stuff. So, like, you know, I get why her music is popular. It's just not my cup of tea.
Yeah, and that's my thing too. I get that she's a package, and she's got this whole thing going on, and she's more of like she's more than an artist in my eyes. She's like a brand kind of like
she is.
It's like it's a golden standard as a pop artist to be compared to Beyonce as a female pop artist.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, she's also you know how like I was saying,
but I'm just not into the whole, you know, Lemonade and Watermelon and whatever, all the crazy Beyonce
I've
shit.
Been drinking.
The Bayhive.
I've been drinking watermelon.
I'm not into it. Like it doesn't do it. Like I sit there and I'm like,
I mean, I just feel that way about a lot of music that's on the radio. Anyway,
I do too.
Like, it's catchy. I like moving to it. I like going to the club and listening to it, but I can't sit.
But then there's some stuff on the radio that I'm just like, I'm gonna immerse my entire body into this. Yes. Like, I love it.
Like,
you know,
when Greta Van Fleet started getting big and like people started listening to them on the radio, they were like, "Holy shit!" Like,
well, everyone online gives them flack because everyone's like, "These guys are just like Led Zeppelin." It's like, cool, dude.
I mean, Led Zeppelin definitely influenced them, but so didn't like the Grateful Dead and Fleetwood Mac.
Oh yeah,
and
like they'll admit, they've admitted that they are influenced by Led Zeppelin and all these guys, and it's like,
of course they were. Listen to their lead singer.
Yeah, they have that Zepp sound, but like for me, it gets annoying when all these people are like, these guys are sounding too much like Led Zeppelin. But these are like, if you ask me, like the same people who like when you for whatever reason are reading YouTube comments on a music video on YouTube because you're bored. And you see the people on like a Led Zeppelin video on Face or like YouTube, like, man, we need more music like this. If you ask me, there's like the same guys, which brings us full circle to what we were just talking about. They're like, man, rock and roll is dead because the rock and roll I like isn't around anymore.
And I hard eye roll so bad.
Yeah, because they're like, well,
okay, first of all, if you're in comment sections on YouTube videos, you have a fucking problem. Like, if that is how you're spending your time by putting down someone else's music, like
trolling the fuck out of them.
Like someone else put their heart and soul into making this song, and you're gonna just go fucking troll them in the comments of a YouTube video.
Or they'll passively
That's how you're
aggressive
spending
do it.
20 minutes of your life trying to come up with something witty to get 151 likes on someone's YouTube channel.
Good for you.
I can't even tell you the last time I went on YouTube and cared about reading any comments.
You gotta get those fake internet points. That's what it's all about.
It's ridiculous.
Stupid. But yeah, I think in terms of a more traditional classic rock and roll sound, Greta Van Fleet's pretty much on it. But they make it, I definitely see the older influences, but at the same time,
it's hard not to.
Well, yeah. And I mean, they're young.
They're
young too. So I have said this, they're going to lose that at some point.
They're going to
because
change.
it's just the way record companies are now. There's a like record companies, if you're part of them, they'll friggin' own you. They'll turn you into this. They're going to turn into it. They're going to lose that.
But
it's great they were experiencing it, and they're experiencing all of that now, because I think that's what we need in music, is that, you know, we need that old sound to come back, but they're going to lose that at some point. And I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. I hope this is the most wrong I've ever been in my life about something, but I have a feeling that,
I mean, it's
they're going to sell out, and it's not going to be their fault. I mean, it sucks. I always talk about how artists sell out and like, okay, they suck now because they don't sound like they were. And it comes back to my point. I'm the textbook guy.
You're the troll.
I'm the troll. I just don't go in the YouTube comments and do it. I tell friends about it, you know, whatever.
But like, it's really strange to see them go out in such a bang right off the bat with their style, because usually, let's take for instance, I had this conversation a few weeks ago. Lady Gaga, like she started out making music and having this really strange persona that was really getting people's attention. It was what people really wanted to hear. Like, they were instant radio classics. And her latest album, Joanne, completely stripped down. Like there's almost no auto-tune on her voice. It's so raw. It's so natural. And I feel like that's her settling into the sound that she was supposed to make and that she wants to make, you know? I think it's 2 years ago I
gotta go listen to this Gaga album. I haven't.
It
sounds like my cup of tea.
My friend put it on for me. Clay, shout out, my original husband. I love him very much.
The OG.
He played it for me and I was like, there's no way this is Lady Gaga. Like, this doesn't even sound like her. And he was like, but it is her. Like, this is actually her.
I love that.
And you should watch her documentary on Netflix, 5'2" or whatever the fuck it's called. And it shows her making the album and going back to her roots. You know, we see this trend, you know, like even with Johnny Cash, you know, artists start to realize like this isn't where they want to be. This isn't the sound they want to put out, you know, but now they have these big names. So people are going to listen to and respect their music. So she went home back to New York and talked with her family and dug up all this history and this research. And then she put out Joanne. And I swear, there's...
I'm going to listen to it. I'm going to listen to it on my ride home
Every
tonight.
single song.
That's what I'm going to do.
It's a bop.
I've already decided.
It's really good. And it's so soulful. It's so soulful.
I love that.
She's an incredible songwriter.
See, I want to see more artists do that. Start off like super like...
And she did a song with Florence from Florence and the Machine.
You want to talk about one of the most perfect singing voices of our generation.
Oh my God.
Florence Welch, 100%. Please at me on this. Please fight me. I'm ready to fight about this.
She has an incredibly beautiful voice.
Unreal.
So yeah, definitely listen to Lady Gaga's album.
Yeah,
that's my argument.
Everyone else
with
do that too.
So I'm scared with Greta Van Fleet that they're either going to kind of do what Led Zeppelin did and mature more into their sound. Led Zeppelin did that. Led Zeppelin 3 was their acoustic album. I love it. Critics hate it. I like it.
I like it because Immigrant Song's on it, and like there's like one or two other songs on it I enjoy.
See, I like it because it's so different and experimental than what they did before. And the same thing with Fleetwood Mac's Tusk.
Oh my! Oh.
Do you know that they recorded that in Mick Fleetwood's bathroom?
The whole album?
A lot of the songs. Yeah, they would do multiple takes, like in his bathroom. He was like, "Guys, just bear with me. We're going to do it this way."
Well, I think Tusk was their most expensive project that they ever worked on as a band. And it took them the longest.
They did it in his home.
Well, and also Lindsey Buckingham was just like, yeah, this is the direction we're going. If you don't like it, then fuck off. Yeah. And then Stevie Nicks and him fought. I mean, they're always fighting, but like it was just this rift.
Yeah, so they recorded a lot of it in his bathroom, and even they felt really weird about it. It didn't have good reception when it came out, but now it's like a Fleetwood classic. Like, everybody loves Tusk.
Tusk is a great album, and that's the album I was telling you guys the first night we got together.
Yeah.
That's the album that Sarah's on. The song Sarah is, for those of you that don't know, there's a great Fleetwood Mac documentary on YouTube. I forget that. Its name's escaping me now. Just Google Fleetwood Mac documentary on YouTube and watch it.
We'll find it and put it on our sources page on our website.
Stevie Nicks talks about when... So, after Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham broke up, she had a brief affair with Mick Fleetwood. They were together, and Stevie Nicks knew it, and she started to fall for him, and then Mick Fleetwood cheated on Stevie Nicks. Stupid move. With Stevie Nicks' best friend Sarah. This was pre-Tusk, and then they wrote a song. What? Why are you rolling your eyes?
I know, I was laughing at Meg's womp womps.
Oh, okay.
Please continue. This was a very good tangent.
But he fucking cheated on Stevie Nicks with her best friend Sarah.
What a dunce.
And the song Sarah, you gotta listen to it.
It's a great song.
It's awesome. I played it for you that night.
It's one of my regular jams.
Yeah. It's on the regular Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah.
playlist.
I'm a very big Fleetwood fan. I saw Stevie in 2016.
It was like a year or two ago.
On her last tour that she did solo.
Was that
It was interesting. I expected her to play a lot more hits, but she actually got up on stage and she, for 5 minutes, would tell a story about the song she was going to play, and it would be previously unreleased music. So she played songs straight from the Stevie vault.
Yep.
And then for her encore and shit, she did Go Your Own Way, Rhiannon, all the classics, and what have you.
Yeah, but you got to think about it. She's on a solo tour. She's going to promote her solo music.
I actually read a quote because I read an article about her where Stevie Nicks doesn't think she's a good musician. Stevie Nicks thinks she's a good songwriter.
Really?
Yeah, she does not think she's a good musician at all.
I mean, she wrote that one song with Prince, though. I can't remember what it is off the top of
And
my head.
her and Tom Petty were like BFFs. She used to
yeah.
show up to Tom Petty's house with a box of powdered chocolate milk mix. And she would make chocolate milk, and they would sit downstairs with Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers in his studio.
And then they did Stop Dragging My Heart Around on Stevie's solo album. Oh, my God.
And they just jammed.
I love that song.
She would just show up out of the blue.
I love that it's fucking chocolate milk mix.
I know.
I knew they were like would hang out and shit, but the fact you just show up like, hey man, got some fucking Nesquik, want to make some music? Like, damn.
Yep. And he'd be
There's
like,
also a lot of drugs being thrown around back then, dude. You gotta think about that. Like,
still.
And he'd be like, let's do
chocolate milk mix at a gas station sounds like a great idea when you're high as fuck.
It sounds like a great idea.
It sounds like
all the time.
Yeah,
all
I
the
could go
time.
for some
I guess
chocolate
so.
milk right now.
Yeah, chocolate milk is
I'm gonna go get it.
the best.
I mean, the gas
Hold on,
station
guys. We're gonna pause for a second.
Yeah, pause, and we're going to the gas station across the street from the studio to get some chocolate milk.
But yeah, so I mean, shout out to Chocolate Milk for being there for some of the greatest songwriting. If we're gonna be
shout out to chocolate
real about
milk.
it,
for all the brown cows out there.
We
please
love you,
sponsor
True Moo.
us.
True Moo. The official milk sponsor of my childhood.
I guess now that we're talking about Stevie's last tour, we can talk more about what the older artists are doing today. You know? Like Elton John's going on his quote unquote farewell tour, even though God knows probably another
It's not
2-3
the last you'll
years.
see of them, folks. It's
I
not the
know.
last you'll see of them.
He's just making money.
Yeah, a lot of them. They'll do the
And all of
farewell
you are
tour.
drinking the Kool-Aid, buying the $800 floor seats. Oh, it's
Yep.
the last time we're gonna see him live.
No, it's not.
No way.
He's gonna miss it.
I don't buy it.
So it's like they do that. A lot of them end up producing themselves. They'll go on to like produce younger acts, records, or run studios, or they'll do like the Jimmy Page thing and go back into their vault and like remaster a bunch of stuff and release unreleased stuff, and then get sued by that band again because they think they ripped off Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah.
Again.
I mean, they've been. They just released. I know we talked about. I talked about this with you guys last time, but last year they released a shit ton of Jimi Hendrix songs that no one had ever heard before.
That's true.
They're releasing the Prince vault.
Yeah,
that he has
like
the
200.
Yeah.
some odd
I can't wait
songs
for
in.
that.
It's gonna be amazing.
That's gonna be fun.
So yeah, even though like these artists are like in their old age and they're dead and whatever, people are still eating their shit up because like it's unreleased, rough cuts of their stuff, and they're amazing. The stuff I heard from the Jimi Hendrix on Spotify, Manish Boy, I was like, holy shit! Like, why have I gone so long without this?
Oh yeah, it's really cool to listen to it, but I think that also feeds into sort of the problem that people have with modern rock music because they eat up so much like the classics Kool-Aid, like Mike just said, where it's like they get stuck on like this feedback loop of listening to like remaster after remaster or like unreleased material of like someone who's been dead for like ever. So like I think it's kind of feeds back into the problem of like people not liking modern music because like I don't have a problem with someone doing remasters and releasing unreleased material, but I think that can like create some of that angry angst people have about rock being dead because they're like, we got all this stuff that continues to come out year after year after year from like so and so who stopped touring like 30 years ago,
right?
So then I think people get all miffed because they're like, why can't new music sound like this? We still have all this good old music coming out.
I mean, I get it as like one of those picky rock snobs. Like I've been there a few times, but you also have to take into account that the technology's changed. People's tastes have changed.
Oh yeah, certainly. Like again,
as culture progresses, so doesn't the music that's influenced by it.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying it's a problem that it happens. I think it's a point to be raised when we originally started this tangent, however long ago we started this tangent about where rock is or isn't and so on and so forth. It's a point to try to bring it back. We can at least say, well, maybe that's one of the reasons people always bring up once a fucking day, like why rock is dead in their eyes.
Oh, for sure. I get it. It makes sense, but
oh yeah,
we move on. We move
yes,
onward.
we move on. You find newer shit, and then you listen to that cool shit.
Plus, they're never going to stop remastering and re-putting that shit out because they know when they do, like, they're going to rake in millions of dollars because people are waiting
in some,
for
like,
it.
Hilariously overpriced box set. You're going to get, like, a poster. You'll get maybe, like, a crappy t-shirt or, like, a hat.
A repress on vinyl.
Yeah,
a repress on vinyl.
A little tin box for the CDs to go in.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Maybe a cassette. Now the cassettes are going to become...
And
the
then,
next wave.
Coming back.
Then, the bands are gonna like sit there like robots and sign a bunch of posters for it, and you're like, wow, I got this poster signed by fucking whoever. This is the best.
Which is like why I'm excited that this year's Led Zeppelin's 50th anniversary, but I'm also not excited because it's just going to be so over commercialized instead of being what it's actually about.
But that's good. Maybe if it's over commercialized, they'll get back together and fucking tour.
I mean,
I'm waiting.
They're teasing us with it. And Robert Plant's
If
supposed
I
to be
could
coming
pick-
out with new music soon.
If I could pick one band in the world, it could be anyone,
Mm-hmm.
any genre, dead or alive, I'm going Led Zeppelin 190% of the time.
You saw that
Oh,
shit
for
I
sure.
shared on Facebook today. Bonzo's kid's going to be at the House of Blues in, November
Yeah,
or
because
something?
Jason Bonham has the Led Zeppelin experience, which like
Yeah.
he has his own bands which are dope. Like check out Black Country Communion. That's him with Joe Bonamassa and
Oh my god.
someone on bass who I can't remember.
Joe Bonamassa is on the bits. You got to listen to it.
Yeah.
I have like a weird thing, like kind of where I'm like, of Joe Bonamassa.
Oh, I want to see him so bad.
For me, it's like coming from a guitarist standpoint, like he kind of annoys me because it's like every other day he's like, oh my gosh, like he's like those
Oh
old.
my god.
He's like those old people on Facebook that bitch him about rock's dead. He's like, like this is why rock sucks today, or like you need to do this, and it's like,
Yeah, but he's in a position where he can say that.
in a way, sure, but like I think he gets a lot of unnecessary hype. People like he's a great player, don't get me wrong, but I think people are like he's like the last greatest blues player ever. It's like, he's good. I think people just hype him up too much. That and he's like a huge gear snob, which like it's cool, and he like shows all like the crazy vintage gear he has because like everything he owns is vintage and tours with is vintage. But like he'll do this thing where he's like,
Andrew just burped again.
I did. He like released like a signature guitar pedal through whomever with like his own special circuit on it that he likes. But then like literally like within 6 months he talked about how like people who use pedals aren't real musicians. It's like, dude, you have like 2 or 3 signature pedals with your name on them. It's like he just like irks me in that sense where it's like, I feel like you're just like making noise to make noise.
He's that
outside of
bitch.
music. Kinda.
He's that bitch. That's okay.
But
He
like,
can still be that bitch.
but either way, like Black Country Communion, dope music. Check it out. Look it up if you haven't before. You can hear Jason Bonham on drums.
Yeah.
And Joe Bonamassa on guitar and someone on bass who I can't remember.
Yeah, it'll
Sorry
be dope.
to whoever's on bass in Black Country Communion.
But yeah, so like he's going to the House of Blues. Fleetwood Mac minus Lindsay.
Yeah, I found
Is
it.
touring.
Mike Campbell. Mike Campbell from Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. He's Tom Petty's guitarist.
I mean,
Okay,
that's
well,
still
Mike
pretty
Campbell
dope.
is still a legit guitarist, so like,
He's still a legit guitarist, but,
It's not the same.
it's like going to see the Eagles without Glenn Frey.
Yeah.
Like,
but people still did it.
Yeah.
But then again,
Sold
like,
the fuck out.
I
Then
almost
again,
did it.
the same argument can be made about Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. Going and seeing them without Clarence Clemens. I mean, you have to. Clarence Clemens
Yeah.
is dead and not around. And
I mean,
you have
it's-
to see the Eagles now.
It's like Dead and
haven't.
Company, Jerry
But, like-
Garcia is dead, but they still tour with John Mayer.
It's cool.
I mean, Dead and Company is pretty.
I
lit.
mean, it's just not. I mean, it depends on who. I'm very picky about the band's next move. Like, I wouldn't go see that. I saw the Eagles with Glenn Frey, right? No, it's
Mhm.
I would not go see them with this Glenn Frey's kid and Vince Gill. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
going to. This is not my cup of tea.
He deserves more respect.
And
than
I'm not
that.
going to go see Fleetwood Mac without Lindsey Buckingham because Lindsey Buckingham's still alive. He's just an asshole.
Yeah, they're
You know?
just that's. I mean, I want to go see him
Remaining
so
true to
bad,
form.
but like,
Tickets are like $300. It's not even
I
the full
know.
band.
I know, like, oh, fuck off. But yeah, and Paul McCartney's dropping a new album
Mm-hmm.
next month,
Mhm.
Egypt Station, and
Mhm.
his new bop,
For you.
"For You." Still an amazing
It's a
song. He's doing I think he's doing a mini tour in Canada
No, dope.
at the end of the year, and it's already sold out.
Great White North.
Because I was literally going to buy tickets and drive up to Montreal
Ooh.
to see him because that's how much I love Paul McCartney, and they were already gone.
You could scalp last minute or something, like do
Yeah.
like a living on a prayer situation. Just go up there, figure it out.
Yeah, bringing it all full circle to how this originally started, like, I'm going to say a solid hour ago, maybe, is
Yeah.
when this tangent
Probably
started. Rock is very much still alive. It's just like, it's your local bands, it's your friends playing in the fucking garage, it's
Yep.
that and the other thing. So,
If you want to complain about rock being dead, start getting more into your local music, kids. I'm
Yeah,
telling you.
get into your local music scene, or if maybe even if it's not your local music scene, do some digging on the YouTubes and the Spotify's on your music streaming platform of choice. You will find a local band somewhere that could use the love and use the support. So, buy their T-shirts, buy their CDs, all that crap you hear all the time.
Dude, one of my favorite bands is a local Worcester band called Blue Light Bandits. Yeah. I was DMing with them on Instagram today. I was like, yo, I saw them at a bar, like briefly. I was in and out of this bar really quick, and they were there recently. And I walked up to them because they were playing they do a lot of covers at their shows. Because that's what, I mean, they're a bar band, really. They're good, though. They won Worcester's Band of the Year last year for 2017.
Nice.
Like,
congrats, guys.
They're awesome. So I was DMing with them on Instagram today. I was like, yo, like they're going to be in Worcester a couple times this week. And I'm like, I got to make it one of their shows. Like I didn't stay long enough for the last one, but I talked to them last time. I was like, yo, are you guys going to play this song? And they're like, nah, not tonight. But like, if, you come to another show, we might do it. And so I DM'd them and I was like, yo, you guys going to play some originals this week? Cause I'm like, their original stuff's on Spotify and I'm into it. Like their covers are great. And I love cover bands. Not saying that, but I'm like hardcore. Like I'm a fan. Right. I want to go and see them play their shit. Right.
Absolutely.
And most of the people that are going to see them are going listening to covers there at the bar. But I'm like, I want to see you play some songs from your album. So I was like, you going to play any originals? They're like, absolutely. And I was like, well, I'm coming by. And I was like, oh, by the way, I do this podcast. Like, I really want you guys to come on the show. But like, I love them. I've shown a lot of my friends that are probably listening to this can attest to this. I've showed you Blue Light Bandits over the past couple months. They're my band of this summer. Like I got into them so hard, and they're a Worcester band, and they're fucking awesome guys.
Yeah, it's
support local music.
Yeah, which is why I love Spotify so much because like obviously Spotify keeps track of what you're listening to, and Spotify knows I'm like a 78-year-old woman at heart. And
Spotify is also where you can find us at Podcast in the Sky with Diamonds.
I love it.
So look us up on there or your various streaming platforms.
It's very good. But like they'll sprinkle in like older music that I haven't heard with like newer small town indie bands, and that's where I found like all of my favorite new modern music is from my Discover Weekly. Like I'll just dig in there. Like you know who Dr. Dog is.
Oh yeah,
I know who they are because you or someone we know has showed them to me.
Yes, because they had a song that really reminded me of something that John Lennon would have written today, which is really cool.
You definitely sent that to me because remember you.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure all caps in the text saying like, "Holy fuck, Andrew, listen to this. This is something John Lennon would write today if he was still writing music." And I was like,
you also showed them when we went to Exhibit A.
Yeah.
We did that. Shout out Exhibit A Brewing Company.
Hell
I love you.
Yeah.
Your beer is so good. I love you so much.
It's delicious.
Anyone listening to this show, I'm an unpaid spokesperson for Exhibit A Brewing Company in Framingham, Massachusetts. Incredible beer. You got to do it.
Cute little space, too.
The Danko Rye IPA is the shit. I love it. They have their demo tape series. Oh my God. I love beer. I could do a beer podcast, and I might at some point. I love them so much.
That'll tie into when we do the brewery playlist episode. You know, if any of the local brewers want us to do a beer podcast, liquor us up and get us talking about your beer.
We'll love it.
10 out of 10 would do it.
Dude, beer companies would be great sponsors for this.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
I mean, anyone would be a sponsor. So
getting
if
back to my
there
point,
wants to sponsor us, hit us up.
Beer and music go hand in hand. I can't remember the last time I went to a concert and didn't have a beer in my hand at some point at a concert.
True facts.
It's just really nice to enjoy a nice cold beer and listen to your favorite music. There is no sweeter feeling. Sex is great, but beer and concert together are a great combination. To any family that may be listening to this, that's just a saying that's going around Twitter right now. Sex is great, but
it's
and then something else is good. But
maymays, as the kids say.
It's a maymay.
So stay tuned for episode 3. We're going to be doing the history of boy bands.
Bye, bye.
Dirty pop.
Yeah, so we're not going to give you too much information aside from that, but Mike Miller is very excited.
I may sing Dirty Pop in its entirety. Stay tuned.
Oh, God, it's going to be beautiful.
We would all love to do that, trademarks and shit. So if episode 3 just gets taken down,
that's why.
You know why.
So, yeah, thank you so much for listening. We're glad that you're sticking with us. We can't wait to see you guys in episode 3. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Check out our playlist on Spotify.
Yes. Otherwise, have a good night. Drive safe if you're listening to us in the car. If you're listening to us at the gym, have a great workout.
Hell yeah.
If you're listening to us just some background noise to fall asleep, why? We've probably kept you up more than you've been trying to sleep. If so, good night.
If this is also a podcast and chill situation, we hope it's going well.
Oh,
Hey,
yeah. Get it.
All right.
And on that bombshell, I guess we'll close out the show. So good night, everyone.
Good
Have
night,
a lovely
everybody.
evening.
Subscribe, subscribe, subscribe.
We'll catch you later.